Welcome to today's deep dive. Before we jump into things, I just want to ask you to please take a quick second to like and subscribe to the show.
Yeah, please do.
It really helps us keep bringing you these deep dives, and we really appreciate it. Now, for today's focus, we are reviewing a brand new, ultra long, incisive, and honestly just absolutely fascinating ebook.
Oh, it's intense.
It is. It's titled The Dancing Cure:
Yeah.
Cancer, Running, and Breathing for Health, and it's written by Conrad Reicher. And just to set the tone right out of the gate, you have to picture the cover art of this book.
He's quite the visual.
Right. It features this fiery, glowing fist hovering right over a thick, raw steak that is just sizzling in a cast iron skillet.
Which tells you exactly what you're getting into.
Exactly. It is an intense, unapologetic visual, and it perfectly captures the author's primal message.
It really does set the stage for a very specific worldview. Like, the imagery alone tells you this is not going to be your standard gentle wellness manual.
Not at all. And I want to tell you right now to the listener, if you want to truly grasp the raw intensity of this work and to see the sheer volume of data and anecdotes he compiles, you should check out Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books to buy the book yourself.
Highly recommend looking at the primary source for this one.
Yeah, and also make sure to follow the author at Conrad Reicher on Substack. Now, before we get any further, we really need to issue a crucial disclaimer to you.
Very important we do this.
Right. This book contains highly politically charged content. It is explicitly written for a men's rights activist audience, specifically addressing what is often called the red-pilled manosphere community.
Yeah.
It aggressively targets feminist ideology, Marxist institutional capture, and modern medical practices.
Yeah.
We must make it absolutely clear that we are not endorsing or taking sides on any of the left-wing or right-wing viewpoints presented in this book.
None at all.
Our mission today is simply to impartially report, unpack, and convey the fascinating ideas and arguments contained within this source material.
That's a vital distinction to make. Our goal here is just to explore Reicher's highly controversial premise. He is putting forward the idea that the modern medical establishment is essentially a racket.
A racket designed to keep men weak.
Exactly. Weak, passive, dependent. And according to his framework, the true cure for cancer and chronic disease isn't found in a pill or a modern clinic.
It lies in a radical return to stoic primal masculinity.
Precisely. Specifically, he outlines a protocol of relentless physical movement, a strict carnivore diet, tactical breath work, and total silence.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the book doesn't actually start in a hospital or a gym. It starts by taking a hard look at the history of our institutions.
Yeah, he zooms way out.
He argues that we need to understand how society functioned before institutions were, in his exact words, captured by feminists and Marxists. He builds this case that there is a literal systemic war on masculinity.
Which is a heavy claim.
It is.
Well,
I want to make sure we understand his evidence here. Can you walk us through specific institutional examples he uses to back this up?
Certainly. One of the most striking examples he uses involves the university system, specifically the University of Iowa. The book points out that the university cut elite men's swimming, diving, and gymnastics.
Wow.
And keep in mind, these were programs with high graduation rates and national rankings. According to the author, they were gutted simply to comply with Title IX's proportionality quotas.
Wait, let me just pause you there so everyone is on the same page. When he says Title IX's proportionality quotas, what exactly does that mean in this context?
Good question. So Title IX is a civil rights law in the U.S. meant to ensure equal opportunity based on sex and education programs.
Right.
But the proportionality quota aspect means that the ratio of male to female athletes must closely match the ratio of male to female students enrolled in the school.
So if a college is, say, 60% female,
then 60% of its athletes technically need to be female. The author argues that to balance this bureaucratic ledger, the university eliminated established men's teams and added obscure women's sports, like water polo, just to make the math work.
just to hit a number.
Exactly. He frames this not as equity, but as institutional cowardice that actively punishes male achievement.
Got it. So he sees that as a symptom of a much larger societal effort to sideline men. And from there, he extends this critique directly into the American family.
With the alpha void.
Yes, the alpha void.
Yeah.
He says this is driven by the family court system, which he argues treats fathers as expendable wallets rather than essential biological parents. There's this one story in the book that really highlights his point about Carl Thompson.
Right, Carl Thompson. He's described as a pipe fitter who fell about $800 behind on child support.
which isn't a massive amount in the grand scheme of things.
No, but as a penalty, the state revoked his driver's license, which obviously impacts his ability to work and actually pay the support.
And his ex-wife hadn't let him see his son in 17 months.
Exactly. Riker uses this to illustrate a system that, in his view, actively taxes fatherhood. He believes the legal system punishes men while effectively subsidizing family fragmentation.
But this is where the book makes a really massive leap that I just found fascinating. He isn't just talking about the social or emotional toll of taking fathers out of the home.
No, he takes it to a biological level.
Right. He claims this actually changes human biology. How exactly does he connect family court disputes to cellular disease?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, Riker claims that this systemic erasure of men is nothing short of biological sabotage.
Biological
He
sabotage.
cites a 2021 study from JAMA Pediatrics. This study looked at boys raised without their biological fathers in the home, and it found they have a 34% higher load of epigenetic markers tied to chronic inflammation.
Okay, epigenetic marker. Let's break that down for a second. That sounds like heavy biology.
It is, but think of your DNA like a massive, complex soundboard in a recording studio. Your genes are the individual tracks, the drums, the guitar, the vocals.
Okay, I'm with you.
Epigenetic markers are the actual sliders on that soundboard. They don't change the tracks themselves, but based on your environment, your stress, your lifestyle, they slide up or down, turning certain genes louder or muting them completely.
Ah, okay. That makes perfect sense. So he's saying the absence of a father actually slides the volume up on the genes that cause inflammation?
Exactly. And the book points out that this specific type of chronic inflammation is the exact environment that breeds things like prostate and colorectal cancers later in life.
Wow.
Yeah, he pairs this biological data with CDC statistics from 1999 to 2022, showing a 47% jump in male suicide.
That's a huge jump.
It's staggering. His overarching argument is that when you remove the stabilizing protective force of a strong father, the entire biological system of the next generation dysregulates and disease inevitably follows.
That is a heavy, intense way to view family dynamics. But it brings us right to the door of the medical system, which is where he really unloads.
Oh, he does not hold back.
It's not at all. Riker has this blistering critique of Big Pharma and what he calls the inactivity industrial complex. He paints modern oncology as essentially a cartel that profits off keeping men sick and sedentary.
Right.
And he uses this melanoma drug, Opdivo, as his prime example. Can you explain his issue with how these drugs are pushed?
The author uses Opdivo to highlight the sheer bloat and inefficiency of the profit-driven medical sector. The drug costs a staggering $158,000 a year for a patient.
That is insane.
But he pulls FDA data showing it only has an 18% response rate.
18%.
For that much money.
Exactly. He contrasts this massive civilian expense with the VA system, the Veterans Affairs hospitals.
Yeah.
He notes that the VA often quietly delivers better or equal outcomes using older, significantly cheaper care protocols.
Why is that?
Because, according to his thesis, the VA doesn't have the same aggressive profit motive to push shiny, new, hyper-expensive drugs onto captive consumers. And it's not just the drugs. It's the doctors themselves, or rather, what the system has turned doctors into. He talks about the complete death of the doctor-patient relationship due to administrative bloat.
The screen time issue.
Yes. There's a stat in the book that is just mind-blowing. Doctors now click a mouse up to 6,000 times in an 8-hour shift just to satisfy electronic health records.
It's a profound shift. The book argues that doctors are now staring at screens, functioning as data clerks for insurance companies rather than actually looking at the patient sitting right in front of them.
And he ties this administrative nightmare directly to HIPAA privacy rules, which he claims have been weaponized against families.
The anecdote of the Texas father.
Yes, that was incredibly tough to read. This father was locked out of his 19-year-old son's cancer treatment because technically the son was a legal adult.
Right, the hospital cited HIPAA privacy rules to keep the dad out of the loop.
And the boy ended up missing chemo sessions and died alone. Riker argues that the medical bureaucracy naturally assumes fathers are threats or liabilities rather than essential caregivers.
And he frames all of this as part of a broader feminization of medicine. He points to the American Psychological Association's 2018 guidelines as a real turning point.
What did those guidelines do?
They controversially labeled traditional masculinity traits like stoicism, emotional suppression, and competitiveness as inherently harmful. According to the author, the medical system now treats male stoicism as a psychological disease that needs to be cured.
Right. He says they push men toward therapy and emotional vulnerability instead of recognizing that military-style resilience and a bias toward action actually yield higher survival rates in brutal situations like cancer treatment.
Precisely. And that ideological shift, according to the author, has led to dangerous language manipulation inside hospitals. He terms it diagnostic neutering.
Diagnostic neutering. That is quite a phrase. What does that actually look like in a hospital setting?
It refers to the push for gender-neutral medical terminology. The book gives examples of hospitals and public health campaigns replacing clear biological words like men and fathers with phrases like gender-affirming individuals with prostates.
And how does that affect outcomes in his view?
Riker cites studies arguing that this kind of vague, politically correct language causes massive confusion among general public. As a result, there is a significant drop in screening adherence among men, leading to a spike in late-stage cancer diagnoses.
Because they don't think the messaging applies to them.
Exactly. His logic is straightforward. When you erase the male body from the language of medicine, men simply stop showing up for care.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because Riker doesn't just critique the system and leave you hanging. He offers a radical, primal imperative as the ultimate weapon against disease.
The dancing cure.
He calls it the dancing cure. But I have to warn you, the listener, do not let the name fool you. There is no actual dancing involved here. He means relentless, punishing, physical movement.
He contrasts our modern, sedentary Western lifestyle, where we sit for an average of 11 hours a day with hunter-gatherer tribes.
Yes, he specifically looks at the Hadza people of Tanzania.
The contrast is staggering. The average Hadza tribesman walks 12 to 15 miles a day every single day, foraging and hunting.
And the author points out that their cancer rates are practically zero.
Now, modern medicine often attributes this simply to lower life expectancy or genetics, but Riker builds a very compelling biological argument around the mechanics of all that movement.
And what exactly are those mechanics? Like, how does walking 15 miles a day stop a tumor?
What's fascinating here is the specific biological mechanism Riker relies on. The lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is your body's garbage disposal. It flushes toxins, dead cells, and rogue cancer cells out of your tissues.
Right.
But unlike your circulatory system, which has your heart constantly pumping blood around, the lymphatic system has no pump.
So how does the fluid move?
It only moves through muscle contraction. Think of it like a city's plumbing system that only works if there's constant low-grade earthquake shaking the water through the pipes.
That's a great visual.
If you sit at a desk for 11 hours a day, your lymphatic system essentially stagnates. The toxins just sit there. Riker describes what he calls the alpha immune effect.
The alpha immune effect.
When you engage in high-intensity interval training or HIAA or relentless running, you spike two crucial things in your body. First, natural killer cells, which are literally the hitmen of your immune system that hunt down tumors. Second, you spike BDNF.
Let's define BDNF for the listener, because that comes up a lot in these health spheres.
BDNF stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor. The easiest way to think of it is like Miracle-Gro for your brain and nervous system. It repairs and grows new neural pathways.
So movement is triggering this.
Yes. By hyperoxygenating the blood through intense movement and forcing your mitochondria to become wildly efficient, movement effectively starves cancer cells. Cancer thrives in stagnant, hypoxic, meaning low oxygen environments. Movement destroys that environment.
That shift in perspective is wild. He is basically telling the reader to stop being a passive patient waiting for a doctor to save them and to become an active predator against their own disease.
And the book is packed with these incredible real-world examples of men who took this philosophy to the extreme.
The case studies are definitely the emotional core of the book. For example, he details the story of Joe Maloney, a 58-year-old steelworker from Pittsburgh.
Diagnosed with stage 2 colon cancer.
Right. Instead of going the traditional route, he refused chemotherapy. He started running 8 miles a day, every single day. According to the book, 14 months later, his scans were completely clean.
And it wasn't just him. There's the story of a Texas inmate given 6 months to live because of a terminal diagnosis. He survived for 5 years just by walking 10 miles a day in a tiny, restricted prison yard.
But the one I couldn't stop thinking about was James, the software engineer.
Oh, James, yeah.
This guy was doing 70-hour work weeks, completely trapped in an office chair. He gets sick, and instead of staying in the medical system, he completely abandons his desk job. He buys a recurve bow, straps on a 30-pound pack, and goes out into the bush in West Texas to hunt deer.
It's intense.
By hiking miles every day and living out this primal hunt schema, the book claims he shrank his tumor by 60% without any traditional medical treatment.
It's an extreme rejection of modernity, but movement is only one pillar of his protocol. Riker argues you can't outrun a terrible diet.
Diet is huge in this book.
He strongly advocates for what he calls the diet of the dominant male, which is a strict, unapologetic carnivore diet. He argues that insulin is the primary fuel for cancer cells, and he traces the root of our modern metabolic crisis all the way back to the 1977 McGovern Report.
Right, the McGovern Report. For those who don't know, that was the U.S. government's dietary goals report that basically demonized animal fat and pushed Americans to eat way more carbohydrates and grains.
Riker views that as a catastrophic turning point in human health.
Exactly. He argues that modern men have been brainwashed into eating highly processed grains, soy, and seed oils, which he claims completely wrecks their hormonal baseline. Instead, he pushes the steak and eggs protocol.
And to back this up, he points to the Maasai warriors in Kenya. Their traditional diet consists almost entirely of raw milk, animal blood, and meat.
They consume massive amounts of saturated animal fat.
Yet they have soaring testosterone levels and absolute zero atherosclerosis.
Let's do a quick definition on atherosclerosis for anyone unfamiliar.
Put simply, atherosclerosis is the hardening and narrowing of your arteries due to plaque buildup. It's what leads to heart attacks.
Great.
The conventional medical wisdom is that red meat and saturated fat clog your arteries. Riker uses the Maasai to argue the exact opposite, that natural animal fats are the ideal fuel, and it's the processed carbs causing the inflammation that damages the arteries in the first place.
And right alongside this meat-heavy diet, he places a massive emphasis on how we breathe. Tactical breathwork. Riker views modern, shallow mouth breathing as a literal sign of weakness and metabolic dysfunction.
He claims it keeps the body in a constant state of low-level panic.
He draws heavily on military and historical techniques here. He details the 4-7-8 tactical breathing method used by Navy SEALs to control their stress under active gunfire.
He also explores the Soviet Butaiko method.
Riker stresses that these are not just cute relaxation techniques you do on a yoga mat. They are physiological tools used to hack the autonomic nervous system.
The autonomic nervous system being the body's background autopilot, right? The thing that controls our heart rate and digestion without us thinking about it.
Exactly. By taking conscious control of that autopilot through specific breathing patterns, Riker argues you can lower your blood pH, blunt the release of the stress hormone cortisol, and hyperoxygenate your deep tissues.
Again, making the body an incredibly inhospitable environment for tumors to take root.
Now, as much as he loves hacking the nervous system with breathwork, he has an intense, absolute hatred for modern talk therapy.
He refers to the entire psychology industry as the confession industrial complex.
He claims that forcing men to be vulnerable, to sit in circles and endlessly dwell on their childhood trauma, is biologically destructive.
It's a fascinating counter-narrative to almost everything we hear in mainstream wellness today, which constantly pushes for emotional vulnerability. Riker argues that forcing a man to dwell on his pain actually raises his cortisol levels and suppresses his immune system.
He even cites a study on this.
Yeah, suggesting that men who engage in regular talk therapy are 34% more likely to attempt suicide than those who don't. His conclusion is that obsessing over trauma amplifies it rather than releasing it.
So if therapy is out, what does he suggest men do when they are facing a terrifying diagnosis?
To replace the therapist's couch, Riker proposes what he calls the brotherhood of survival. He contrasts the passive, talking nature of therapy with action-oriented groups.
Like the Iron Men of Pittsburgh.
Exactly. He highlights this group of men, many of whom are actively battling cancer, who meet at 6 in the morning in the freezing cold to run 5Ks together. But the catch is, they do it in total silence.
Total silence. No talking about their feelings, no discussing their lab results.
None. They operate on a strict no-pity pact. They refuse to identify as victims, and they even refuse the label of survivors.
Because that becomes your whole identity.
They believe that adopting those labels ties your identity to the disease itself. For them, physical output, shared suffering, and silent stoic endurance are the true cures, not emotional confession.
So what does this all mean? When you pull all these threads together, from the critique of family courts to the carnivore diet to silent reading rub Critchett, Riker's ultimate manifesto in The Dancing Cure is a very clear battle cry.
He is demanding that men reject the victim identity entirely.
He is telling them to bypass what he sees as a bloated, profit-driven, ideologically compromised medical bureaucracy. He even highlights this growing healing underground of cash-pay doctors who bypass health insurance entirely to deliver fast, primal, effective care.
Ultimately, it's a call to reclaim health through iron discipline, meat, relentless movement, and stoic silence.
It is without a doubt a radical rejection of almost every modern convention regarding health, wellness, and emotional processing. It frames health not as a medical right, but as a biological conquest.
It really is an intense perspective.
And I want to remind you, the listener, that if you want to dive into the raw data, the case studies, and the unapologetic tone of the source material yourself, you need to grab a copy of this highly provocative ebook on Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books.
Follow the author too.
Yes, make sure to follow the author at Conrad Riker on Substack. And please hit that like and subscribe button for our deep dive right now so we can keep bringing you these incredible breakdowns week after week.
This raises an important question. If Conrad Riker is correct and the psychological stress of our modern, sedentary, hyper-bureaucratic society is literally rewriting our DNA and shortening our telomeres, those protective caps at the ends of our DNA strands that dictate how fast we age, what happens to the next generation of men?
That's a profound thought.
Furthermore, if the medical establishment and this primal manosphere-driven rebellion remain at total war with one another, are we headed toward a future where human health, treatment protocols, and even longevity are completely segregated by our political and cultural ideologies?
That is a wild thought to leave off on. Two completely different worlds of medicine existing side by side. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.